Okay, for our next example, we're going to create an app that allows the user to select between two different dates and times and then calculates the difference between those dates and times. Open Anvil, select blank app. We'll choose material design again. And on the design view, we're going to select a date picker widget and then a second date picker widget and then a label widget. Drag those all into form one. And for each of the date pickers, we want to go to property and select the pick time property. So when we run this, when the user selects one of the date picker objects, not only will we get the date, but we'll get a time selection. Okay, so what we want to have happen here is when the user selects two dates, we want the calculation to be performed on the difference between those two dates and then displayed into label one. And what we're going to do is have that happen when the user selects the second date. So again, we can go down here to the change event property and create a new method there, or we can simply double click on the date picker widget. We'll open up our code view here. And what we want to do is set the text in label one to be equal to the calculated difference between date picker one and date picker two. So I'm going to use Anvil's autocomplete to help us with that. Self dot label one, and we want to set the property, the text property of that to be a calculation. So we'll use some parentheses here, which is the date on date picker two minus the date that's represented on date picker one. Okay, so what we'll do is choose self date picker two, and we'll use the date property, which is the most obvious property for that object. And we'll select date picker two. Go back and do self dot date picker, choose date picker one, and we'll select the date property there. So again, what this is doing is setting the text on label one on this form to be the calculated difference between the date on date picker two minus the date on date picker one. Let's run this. We'll select a date for the first date picker, give it a random time and apply it. We'll select another date here, give it another random time and apply it. Now, when that's set, you can see it calculates the difference as being 15 days and 16 hours. Now, you may notice if I run this again, I'm going to get an error if I don't have a date selected on date picker one. So you can see down here it says type error, unsupported operand, types for minus, date time, and none type. So we have a date time selected on the second widget, but none selected on the first widget, and Python doesn't know what to do. And Anvil is very helpful. It shows us that this error is occurring on form one at line 13. If we click on that, it brings us right to where the error has occurred. So what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to use a Python if condition. And I'm going to say if both the date picker one and date picker two are not none, then we'll go ahead and perform that calculation. So if self dot date picker one dot date is not, again, is not none, and let's get rid of this code snippets. Again, and self dot date picker 2. Try this one more time. Date picker 2 dot date is not none. Then we'll run. Now you can see Anvil's telling us, hey, look, you've got a little syntax error here. So it's underlining this line in red, because if I try and run this, syntax error, we have to have an indent there. And this is really helpful. Anvil tells you as you're typing where you create errors, and it'll keep you from having to go through the whole run loop. The IDE shows you when you're making a mistake. Okay, so now we run this. Let's try this again. If I run, let's get this going. If I run, I select the second date picker, it just doesn't do anything at all. When I select the first date, now you notice it doesn't do anything until I go back into the second date picker, click apply, then it does the calculation. So let's go back and do a little more troubleshooting here. And what we want to do is have that calculation run whether we're clicking on widget date widget 2 or date widget 1. So I'm going to go down here to the click or the change event for date picker 2. I'm going to copy that method name, which is date picker 2 change. If we go there, we see that's the function we've been working on. And I'm going to click on date picker 1, go down to its change event, and paste that in. So now, whether I click on date picker 2 or date picker 1, you can see both of those are going to run the date picker 2 change method. Goes to that line of code. So now when I run this, of course, that code has the error check-in, has that little if conditional. If both of them are none, then nothing happens. So we don't get an error. And now when I click on date picker 1 and change the date, we get a new calculation. So it doesn't matter now if we're picking on date clicker 1 or date clicker 2. As soon as that change is applied, we get that calculation. And let's give this a name. We'll call it time between dates. And let's publish this. We'll change the URL to call it my time between dates .anvil.app. We'll see if that's available. And there we go. As simple as that. We've got a publishable app. You can go to that URL now, mytimebetweendates.anvil.app, run the app, and you'll see that everything we just coded is working at that URL. Let's choose a couple times here. In fact, let's give it some more minutes. Like that, and it creates the calculation, displays it on screen. So moving right along, we've got a few good apps. The next example, we'll learn a little bit more.